Today I'm reading your best hot takes for Dead by Daylight, seeing if they're good or bad, and giving my overall opinion on him. Here's one for you. Everyone hates Meg mains because it's the easy scapegoat, it's the easy person to pick on, but realistically most Meg players are decent. If anything, we should be driving the hate towards Quentin and Steve players. I'm just saying. And let me know your favorite hot takes down below. The game's simplicity is key to its success and why it's been fun at 25 hours and 4K hours. This is a double-edged sword. I think for DBD, it's pretty easy to pick up. Premise of the game itself, it's like you're a survivor, work on gens, you're a killer, kill the survivors. Very simple, very easy to get into, but then as you start peeling away the layers, you're like, oh my god, there's all these perks I need to learn, there's all these different items I need to learn. What does this killer do? What do these maps do? So the simplicity of just running away from the killer works because you can have 25 hours, just run, drop pallets, vault, not think about anything, and it works. And then on the other side, when you have 4K hours and you actually delve through everything and you're like, okay, I know what this perk does, I know what this map is, etc., it makes it so that you can still enjoy the game. Now, this is a double-edged sword because it gets boring. It is simple, and simple things oftentimes do get boring. So for DBD, after you've played an excessive amount of time, you're like, this again. And that's why a lot of the dedicated players that have so many hours are just so burnt out from DBD. But honestly, W hot take. Killer players don't win when they get 3 kills or 3 hooks or 1 hook. Killer players win when they have fun. Honestly, big W. This is just not even for killer, but for survivor. Just playing the game and having fun. That's the entire point. Unless you're a big masochist and you want to suffer the entire time and you're ready to play Elden Ring level 1 all the way through. That's what games are kind of about. It's meant to have fun, and fun is subjective. I mean, whether fun is you actually winning and getting a 4K every single game, or fun is just goofing around with your friends, or fun is just having some interesting or cool gameplay. That's all that it's about. It's about having fun in the game. That's the whole point of playing games in the first place. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be ultra competitive to win. And yes, people can be competitive and have fun the same way. Everyone's different. Having fun, that's the way to go. No killers are that hard to play. As long as you have the fundamentals of killer, you can probably learn how to play every killer at high level within 25 to 50 games. The only reason killer is hard is because the game balance is Honestly, they're not half wrong with this one. Understanding a killer, fundamentals are the way to go. If you know how to loop, if you know how to go around specific tiles, all that's left to do is to understand powers. And killers have been relatively simplistic until the last previous 2 killers, which aren't even that complex. There's just a lot to unpack. But at the end of the day, it really is just learning your fundamentals. Once you've learned the fundamentals, it's just achieving learning the new power. That's why typically when I played a new killer after like 5-6 games, I'm like, okay, I kind of got this. I know what to do. Even someone like the newest killer, Dracula, I've only played like 7 games, but I feel like I have a good firm understanding of how to play Dracula. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm really good at the character or one of the best. It means that I understand what needs to be done, and then I can start perfecting on some of those skills. It's one of those reasons as well, whenever you make a tier list, everyone's like, well, Clown's actually really OP. You can get a 4K every game with Clown. And that's the beauty with DBD. You can pick up any killer, put some hours into them, and almost master some of the easier killers. Some killers require more time, but no matter what, you can master any killer in the game and be ultra good. That's why you see some cracked mains out there. Yeah, honestly, W take. By the way, I don't know if I told you guys this, but I have some new paintings that I've created, and so many people also asked me where they can actually get these. So I do custom ones and pre-made ones. I just want to show you guys real quick. I'm back in the painting mood. I've made a lot of them. If you guys want to get your hands on them, by all means, just shoot me a message on Etsy. I'm really loose with the pricing as well. I just love making art. So if you want it, just name a price, talk to me, send me a message, join our Discord, anything like that. If you want a custom one as well, by all means. Nonetheless, I love art. You know me. I just want to showcase it a little bit. This game would have been dead a long time ago if it weren't for the licensed killers. Just look at the numbers of new players with the chapters of Resident Evil and Silent Hill. Ooh, this is a spicy one. I kind of disagree. I think initially we always tied together Halloween being one of the fundamentals of Dead by Daylight doing good, and 100% yes, this is what helped it get bigger chapters because people are like, oh, you worked with them, I'll work with you too, why not? So it definitely helped, but I think DBD, especially upon launch, was such a unique type of game that they would have lasted for a very long time even without some of the biggest licensed chapters that they have. That's not to say that these big licensed chapters didn't catapult their success further and project them into a monster in this asymmetrical genre, but I have to disagree. DBD was popular before it even had any of these big licenses. I played DBD before a lot of people even knew about it or any of the big licenses were in the game, and I really enjoyed it. Would I have played it for 7K hours? I don't know. But I don't think it's as black as white as to say it would be dead a long time ago. Just look at 2v8, for example. We got 2v8 and we're hitting peak amount of players on Steam charts. You know what I mean? And even when we got something like Alien or Chucky, we didn't even see anything near those numbers. So big licenses definitely helped for sure, and it helped the success, but it wouldn't have been dead a long time ago. I have to disagree with this one. There should be no DC penalty. Ooh, what a spicy one as well. I know everyone's kind of on the fence about this one. Let me talk to you guys a little bit about the DC penalty. A long time ago, I had a podcast. There was a lot of drama going on in the community about people DCing. The main culprit at the time was Legion. Legion was in the game and practically was uncounterable. There was nothing you could do against a Legion, and I literally mean nothing. It was some of the most boring gameplay. So what people would do, they would just DC. The problem was, back in the days when you DC, there was no penalty, there was no bots. So 3 survivors just kind of got screwed because at that point it's pretty unwinnable, especially if they do this early on. Now, a lot of popular people did this at the time, so this had rippling effects where everybody started to DC to the point where every single game you were playing in just regular matches of DBD, somebody was DCing. That carried on over to friends seeing it from friends, and then everybody having their own reason for DCing, making it so that everyone DC'd. This is why the penalty was introduced in the first place. Now, with that being said, the penalty has been here for a very long time, and the more you DC, the longer that penalty actually gets. The issue is there's a lot of reasons that people actually DC at this point. And now that there's bots in the game as well, honestly, I'm pretty loose on this one. I don't really care. If you don't want to sit there and play the game, by all means, I don't see any reason for you not to go. Should there be a DC penalty for that? It's still a tricky one. Because at the end of the day, people still don't necessarily want to play with a bot. Everyone's a little bit different. For me, if I go into a game where I'm playing against like All Merchant or a map that I absolutely hate, I'm gonna try to stick it out just to at least try to get a little bit better at combating the thing that I don't like. And if I end up losing, I lose. It is what it is. There's different types of DCs as well. Like if you're DCing right at the beginning of the match, or if you're DCing literally at the end of the match when you're going to be going into another game, personally, I think you should still get the DC penalty. Maybe those 5 minutes will actually give you a breather to just chill out. If there's some BS going on, like just getting tunneled and camped over and over and over, especially if this is happening multiple games, and or if you're playing killer and you're just getting absolutely stomped and you're like, all right, I'm done, sure. At the end of the day, I think one of the best solutions that they could do, but it also has issues in itself with queue times, is people that DC quite often, just queue them up with other people that DC quite often. That way, no one really has a problem because everyone DCs anyways. And the people that are super against this, just queue them up with people that don't DC. You can collect the stats, they know because they have the timers, so be it. End of the day, there should be no DC penalty. I think there still needs to be a DC penalty. It doesn't need to be as harsh. I don't think you need the 24-hour penalties, maybe 15 minutes max, and then whatever. Map offerings should not exist at all. They serve as nothing but a crutch for people who have been playing on specific maps enough times to learn all the loops and locations on them. Learn to play on whatever map RNG brings you. This is a tricky one as well. I've seen a lot of people saying that map offerings should be gone. I think DBD would probably never do this unless they have a plan in mind, because map offerings take up majority of the offerings. We've seen retired offerings for sure with the map offerings, to the point where they said that people have played on specific maps enough times to learn all the loops. That's just DBD in general though. You could play on any map with a given amount of time and learn all of the loops and all of the tiles regardless. Obviously, there's some maps that are a bit more survivor-sided or a bit more killer-sided, and some maps you just might prefer to play on. I just think there's enough counter. Like, you could bring in another map offering if you like, and that'll counter it. You could bring in the offering to cancel map offerings as well. I don't know. I feel like there is enough counters. I think the overall solution would just be including so much more offerings. I think offerings have been stale for a long time. Personally, map offerings are okay. Bring your own map offering if you want. If you're seeing tons of people doing this, just bring another map offering. It's not that bad. If you're bringing in blood points, you can sit out a few games without him. That's practically an event that gives you millions on millions, so Toxic players tend to play Survivor more, and that's why majority of bad sportsmanships and manner are from Survivor. But not all Survivor mains are toxic. There are plenty of nice people. Ooh, as a killer main, I kind of disagree with this one. This is probably a hard disagree. I think it's just basic maths, right? If you're going into a game, you're gonna be playing against 4 survivors. The chances of finding one of those survivors being toxic, whatever you define that as, you're gonna find at least one person that fits this of the 4 survivors. When you're playing killer, it's just one killer. You know what I mean? And there are toxic killers. I don't necessarily think that survivors are more than likely to be toxic. I've seen equally as toxic killer clips online all the time for whatever reason. People do some crazy stuff. I've seen people bleeding people out all day long just because. I've seen survivors teabag at the exit gate or click their flashlights or BM. I think DBD just fundamentally is built on that kind of toxic idea a long time ago when people used to play and make content on this. That's kind of what it was rooted in. That's kind of base of DBD, and most games are toxic as is. So I think you're just seeing it more often because there's more survivors, but I think DBD in general is just toxic. That's just how it is, and it's just kind of the nature of the game, to be honest. That's probably never going to change. I mainly played this game as Survivor, and now it's miserable. Before MMR, there were more interesting matches. Now matches are a sweat fest. They're so predictable and boring. I play this game less and less. Soon I'll probably stop playing it all. Damn. Has really pushed people out. I think MMR, like the idea of MMR, I always advocated to get MMR into the game. The idea of it is perfect. Like, you're going to be ranked against other players of similar skill set, but seeing all of the other games that have ever included MMR, excluding Dead by Daylight, they tend to get more boring and they kind of end up failing. I think separating the brand new players, like that are brand new to the game, comparative to the players that know the game and have ins and outs and have been playing for such a long time, there needs to be a distinction there. You don't want to lose every game to learn. That's super discouraging. You want to actually build up and start getting closer games, start winning. As for MMR though, I think if it's not as strict at times, and it's gotten better admittingly, it's better. I see people like Lynxy, for example, who's at like top of the MMR food chain, the #1 twins main in the world, and then an event comes out and she's just trying to enjoy it, have fun, and boom, 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 all gens are done, everyone's out. Game lasts like 3 minutes and you're like, oh, that was fun. So I can feel the misery when it comes down to that. And there's been times when I have played DBD and every single game I'm just getting stumped to the point where it becomes discouraging and you can't actually grow or learn anymore. And in some cases, there really isn't any better way that you can play because everyone's just playing kind of perfectly. And I'm not saying I'm the best MMR person out there, but at the end of the day, I can feel the pain in this person. It sucks that they're leaving because of this. But I think that's why they're introducing other game modes as well. So you can just hop into another game mode and chill out and goof around over there. Ironically, they said MMR was still included in some of those game modes, which I was like, what? I was shocked about that. I thought MMR wasn't included in those. But nonetheless, I kind of agree with this one, kind of disagree. I think MMR is still required because you want to separate everybody and make sure everyone's still at least playing with the same skill set amount of players, but they are right in the sense that your matches are kind of, you know, less predictable. It's going to be a sweat fest. It's going to be a little bit boring, so I can understand that as well. I think killers should get a 4K to count towards a win streak. No, I disagree with this one. I just think it'll be so boring because you would just have to slug the last person every single time if you want to get that 4K. And if you're going for a win streak, it's just going to make everybody miserable. Either you're going to bleed that person out on the floor and then race to the hatch, or you're just going to constantly make games miserable. I think if you get a 3 or 4K, it's fine, especially so if you've hooked that other person multiple times and they're on death hook. That'll be a better way. If you're doing a kill streak game, if you've at least hooked the person once or twice, then sure, you can count it towards your win streak. I think it'll just be so boring if you have to slug someone and go for it. I get it though, having all the kills makes sense for a win streak like 1, but regardless, you're still winning if you're getting more than a 2K. That's technically a win by DBD standards. They literally have said it in multiple interviews that they balance the game around 2 kills and 2 escapes. So if you're getting more than that, probably a win. You don't need a Twitch shirt to say you stream. It's just an ugly shirt that most likely never be used as much. To be honest with you, I don't really use my Twitch shirt at all. I don't really put twitch.tv in my name as well. But I get it. People want to network. They want to market themselves out there. There's tons of streamers in Dead by Daylight from a content creator POV. I 100% get it. And it feels really like powering, essentially, and good to have that recognition from Behavior DBD, the game that you've spent so much time and put blood, sweat, and tears into to fully recognize you and be like, hey, we see you, so here's a reward on us. So I think it's a nice goal to work towards. Obviously, there's a lot going on right now with how Twitch shirts are being handled. So I don't think anyone should take it personally if they don't have a Twitch shirt or haven't received one or have been aiming for one and didn't get one, because there's a lot behind the scenes that are currently going on that makes it incredibly difficult to even get one of these. To an extent, I agree with this. You don't necessarily need it to say you stream. You can just continue streaming. But I also understand from the content creator POV that it feels good to have that justification, essentially, and acknowledgement from the devs that, hey, we see you. So I'm 50-50 on this one. We should be able to burn unwanted offerings items to get back half the blood points it costs to buy them. Agree. I've been asking for a crafting mode forever. Not even a hot take, just facts. Get rid of them. There's so many offerings that we don't need. Give us back our money. Endurance should remove your collision with the killer. Ooh, you know what? I actually like this one. Honestly, this promotes some pretty healthy and good gameplay. The whole point of getting endurance is to make sure that you're safe, not to use it offensively. It's more of a defensive kind of thing. So if you're going around body blocking and trying to take hits for somebody, whenever you get endurance, kind of defeats the purpose of it. It's a little bit counterintuitive. Obviously, higher skilled players will be like, yeah, let's use that to get extra hits. But I think if they made a change like that, it'll be pretty healthy. I'd be willing to test this out and to see if it's good. BD isn't horror, it's horror themed. It's basically hide and seek. BD at its core is just hide and seek. With the amount of things that are there, like Yui with a tail running around, it's not necessarily horror. And that's why Lara Croft and things like that came into the game. I'm like, come on guys, that line of horror has been gone for a long time. The game should embrace silliness. I feel that they were almost ashamed to add the Naughty Bear costume since it goes against a darker aesthetic. I say go wild. Or disagree. I think that's what DBD Mobile's already doing. We just spoke about the line. The line is gone, but there's still some reminiscence of the line. There's still some flakes of the line. I think if you go full on like Fortnite dancing and stuff like that, you'll lose a lot of IPs. People don't want to be associated with that. On a technicality, it's still horror themed, as someone has pointed out literally in the last post. So if they went full on silly, it wouldn't work. Look at Fortnite. They didn't get FNAF because it was probably too silly. It doesn't fit the IP, and I don't think someone like owners of Jason want to associate with that. That's probably why Pennywise isn't even in the game yet. So I disagree. I don't think they should embrace silliness at all. Solo queue is unfixable because the main problem is that the mass majority of Survivor player base is trash at the game. I think people are just selfish. I think that's all it really is. Like, you're playing solo, you don't know what everybody else is doing, and you're not willing to sacrifice maybe a hook state or anything like that for the other player unless you're really selfless. And I don't think a lot of players think that way. The lack of communication also doesn't necessarily help. If one person is on a hook, two people are working on a gen, and then both of them run for the save, sometimes that's counterintuitive when someone could just work on a gen and someone else can get a save. You get what I mean. I don't think people suck. I know a lot of the community is more casual when it comes down to it, and maybe they think they play a little bit more competitively, but realistically they are more casual at the game, and because of that you might think people are worse, but overall I don't necessarily think people are just trash at the game. I think there's a lot of other factors. Alright, well, those are some of the craziest and spiciest hot takes for DBD. I really enjoyed this video. I don't really share my opinions too much on the channel. I try to look at both sides and see everyone's POV when it comes down to everything. So it's nice and a little bit refreshing just to kind of chuck my opinion out there. Whether you agree or disagree, that's completely fine. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions down below, as well as your best hot take for Dead by Daylight. That's gonna do it for me. As always, I'm the king. Tip my crown to you guys. We'll see you in the fog.